All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to today's meeting. So we're going to start promptly at 11 in 5 minutes. But I was thinking we could start by showing some school spirit. So let me see if anyone shows up. We can just maybe do a chant real quick because today's the big game against Carolina. So. Hi, Ashley. Still waiting on. Hi, are you here for the meeting today? Yes, awesome. We're going to be starting in about 3 minutes. Let's see. So I'm going to be filming. I think we're going to be filming from here, but we may get a video camera. So I'm not quite sure. But if you don't want to be filmed, you can just sit on the outside of the camera. So yeah. Have it facing me. Not a problem. Yeah, I was gonna do an "I believe that we will win" chant to start off the meeting, but not enough people are here yet, so I feel like it would be a little. Yeah. I'm Jay, by the way, president of PBA. Hi, nice to meet you. So I think you're on for. Let's see, right, awesome. 11:55. Oh, I think it's. Yeah, I think we moved everything up. So we'll probably get a little bit behind schedule since some of these areas. Yeah, because we have all the presidential candidates and EVP candidates coming today, so I'm excited to have presentations for those. Yeah, normally we do introductions, but I think we'll just skip those because there's just going to be so many people. I reserved that room as an overflow, actually, so I don't know if I have to use it. Where did I? Hey, Kevin. So I was thinking, so now we have 3 people here. Right? So I was thinking it would be 3 people is enough people to do, and I believe that we will win champ for the game. I think that's a good idea.
I think it's fun, so I go for it. Yeah.
Okay. I don't. Okay. Do you want to lead it? I'm not very good at chants, so.
Okay, ready? I believe.
I believe.
I believe that.
I believe that.
I believe that we.
I believe that we.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe.
Alright, guys. Come on.
You guys want me to speak here? Like, do you want me to?
Okay, so let's see. So we are currently filming from this direction.
Cool. Can you see me?
Yeah, let me just switch the camera around.
Thanks, dude. Did you just have this one? Yeah, I did. All of the fresh videos. Sweet. Yeah, for sure.
All right, Ashley, can you hear us okay?
We just did that. I believe that we will win chat.
Yeah. Have my microphone temporarily finish up.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, just want to make sure everything was working. Okay, so it is now 11, which is when we said we were going to start the meeting. So we'll go ahead and start. So yes, we can see you now. Let me just. Yeah, you can go ahead and start.
Okay, cool. So hi guys, my name is Jake, and I just want to thank you guys for giving me some time to talk to you. I'm really excited to be running for DSG EVP, but I think that a lot of people have a question, have the question about what the EVP actually is, and then the second question that they always ask me is, what is my vision for the EVP? So I guess those are going to be the two things I talked to you about today. So the executive vice president position recently changed, which is interesting. Because it used to be super internal, like super bureaucratic and procedural. It ran the Senate, but now it's like an external policy-facing role. So it sort of gets to fill the gaps that Duke administration, has and doesn't fill, in a responsible and equitable and really efficient way. So I think that's really exciting, but I think that the recent change means that necessarily it is evolving. You can use that momentum to change the position further. So I don't think that with an external policy role that you should have one that doesn't have a tap on the student goals, that doesn't have a tap on student interests, that doesn't have a tap on what the students actually want those policies to be. Right? And so I think that right now the role is lacking that connection to the student body, which is something that I think I want to bring to it and further evolve that role as sort of the avenue between Duke exec, or DSG exec, DSG as a whole to the student interests and student concerns. Because I think if you're doing policies and projects, those should be informed by student interests. So I think that I'm the candidate that has the best understanding of what the role is, but the one that doesn't see it as stagnant, but rather sees it as dynamic and something that we can continue to change. I think that things like Fix My Campus, where students have been able to actually give feedback about what's happening on campus, even though it might just be like a fly in your salad or loop. Kids have really liked being able to just hold people accountable and say, we want these types of things changed. So why can't we have that on a larger scale where you can submit memos about certain things on campus, or talk about larger structural problems that Duke has. So I think that's really, really exciting. And so that's why I think I want to be EVP, and that's my understanding of the role and how I think we can redefine it as a permanent campus. But more of my vision, I think, for Duke's campus. So I sort of have it across, it's a very broad vision because as the EVP, you sort of have to work in multiple different areas. And I think that having worked over 2 different DSG committees, I have the experience across a diversity of committees. And so I've done a broad set of work, but I think my vision for Duke is also just as broad. So it involves campus culture, having an alcohol policy that's comprehensive and works for everyone when we all move to West. Because I feel like right now Duke is at a pretty critical point with a lot of policies that's passing in terms of housing. So I think I want to try to get in there and have a comprehensive alcohol policy for all, because I think that puts everyone on an equal footing and then also makes drinking more responsible, makes partying more responsible, and these events can be held by a bunch of different communities, not just Duke organizations. And I think that when we silo the alcohol policy off to one group, we necessarily divide the groups further. And then on wellness and advocacy, this is the point that I'm most excited about because it's what I've been doing this year, working with student health, to try to get low-cost STI testing. But I kind of want to expand in terms of how we think about wellness at Duke, because oftentimes I think we just think about physical wellness, physically well. But I think Duke is giving more now to are you emotionally well? Are you mentally well? And so I think that there's a real good opportunity to expand wellness resources on campus. Specifically, I think mental health resources on campus. So CAPS is vastly understaffed, and they have a 6-visit limit currently. And I don't understand how mental health is just supposed to fade away after 6 visits. And so I think that we need to remove that 6-visit limit, but that necessarily means we need more resources and more funding for CAPS. So I think that it's really important that we take away that 6-visit limit in order to have more long-term mental health care for these individuals, because I don't think that it's something you can say is solved after 6 visits to CAPS. And then finally, on access and inclusion, I want to have financial stability over breaks, which means that I was here Thanksgiving break last year because I couldn't afford to actually go home. So I ended up eating raisin bran in a cup on Thanksgiving, which is just like the worst Thanksgiving meal ever. So not only was I not able to see my family, but even more so, I then had to spend my own money that I had to save, and that I had saved the whole year to buy other groceries because marketplace was closed. I couldn't survive on the things that Duke provided me. So I think providing for financial stability across breaks is really important to me. And we've already piloted a program to give stipends I think that we can continue to do that here.
So just real quick, anything you want to like any summary you want to give of your responses to our questions?
Yeah,
Just real quick.
absolutely. So what I've done in terms of access is I worked on the Uber ban. So it's a ban of Ubers, and I actually was part of a group that met with students with concerns about safety and concerns about access in terms of people with disabilities, how they can get to these remote locations. So I met with over 10 students and sort of got all of their concerns, wrote up a brief, and then met with parking and transportation and actually pushed for reforms of that and training and education about accessibility issues. But then I think sort of that just the second point just talks a little bit more about like mental health resources and access to that, like sort of diversity of different disabilities on campus and the barriers they face, and how I'm going to continue to push for accessibility in all spaces, not just critical academic spaces like it has been in the past. So yeah, thanks guys. I think that I'm out of time, so I'll let you guys see the next candidate. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you so much. Bye guys. Thanks.
All right, see you. Thanks.
Bye.
Hey, Simon.
How's it going?
Hey, it's going well. So we're filming in this direction. I can show you.
Oh, is it on your?
Yep.
Oh, cool. All right.
All right.
This is the second
So-
one that's been filmed. It's kind of intimidating, but sorry I'm not super dressed up this game day. So I hope you're not offended by my.
We did it
No, it's-
before,
yeah.
but it came.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah.
I'm very lucky about it.
All right. So whenever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just emailed you my questions.
Right. Yeah. I'm gonna pull those up and get them added to the document.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. All right, so my name's Alec. I'm a junior. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm studying public policy, and I'm running for EVP. And so basically I came to Duke as a first year and didn't have a lot of experience with what Duke was really like, and I saw a lot of issues that I wanted to change. It's kind of a very passionate first year. I joined DSG and found out that the institutional structure was not meant for students that have big, bright ideas, and instead I felt like the organizational structure was oriented towards more resume boosting, self-promotion, and not so much collaboration, not so much here I was a first year, got a lot of resources and people to talk to really kind of brainstorm my ideas and make tangible impacts to do. And so it was really not an organization that I found to be the best organization that we could have at a university like Duke, where I think we literally have some of the most passionate students in the world. And so that was really frustrating for me, and I wanted to change that. And so my sophomore year, I became a communications director, and I'm still a communications director since my second year. And as communications director, I really made it my priority to bridge the divide between the student body and DSG. Because here's DSG doing all these projects and policies that are important for students, not just focusing on budgetary statutes and amendments like they do on Wednesday nights in Senate, all that jazz. They're actually doing good things, but no one actually hears about it. And so my job as communications director, has been to bridge that divide. And I've done so successfully, branching out our social media sites, creating a brand new website that highlights every student project that's currently going on in DSG, and really just kind of emphasizing that, no, we're not here to prioritize ourselves and what we've done. It's to actually promote the student body's needs and actually be advocates for the student body. So as EVP, I think I view the role a little bit differently from my peers that are running against me. I don't see my role as someone, it's not my job to push for policy. And I think that DSG needs someone who's going to be the glue that binds the organization together. That's the role of the EVP. It's not for me to go out and say, now I'm going to push for this platform and this, that, and the other. My job is to create an institutional structure that gives those first-year senators that are coming to Duke with the bright ideas because they haven't been experienced the Duke status quo yet. They don't really know how things are supposed to go, but they have a unique vision. It's my job to give them the institutional organization to do so. So I do that through collaboration, make DSG more collaborative. I mean, there's no reason why for 3 hours on a Wednesday night, senators need to be grouped up in quad, again, talking about things that they don't even understand. Are we short time?
No, I think we have 1 minute.
Okay.
So yeah, if you want to just do a summary of your questions.
Okay.
responses.
Okay, sure. So the first question, what have I done to advocate for students with disabilities on Duke's campus? I'm not gonna pretend like I have this long list of accomplishments advocating for disabilities on Duke's campus, but I actually am an individual with a disability. I have Crohn's disease, and it's been a difficult part of my time at Duke, and so I definitely can understand what life is like for students, especially at college, that's difficult to do, to manage their disabilities with a tough academic and rigorous social and extracurricular atmosphere. And so I'm actually involved with the Pros and Plights Foundation, advocating for a restroom access policy currently in North Carolina. So if there's a retail, a retail establishment that has 2 employees on hand at all times, and there's an individual with Crohn's disease, inflammatory bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, that essentially those places have to allow those individuals to use their restrooms, even if it's employee only. So there's no reason why if you have a restroom, you can prohibit someone who needs to use that restroom to use it. And I think as members of the North Carolina community, that sort of policy would help Duke students. It hasn't done Duke's campus specifically. And then what was the second question again?
I think it was like what have you done? What challenges do you see on campus, and like what can you do to address
Yeah.
those?
And so I think one challenge that I see as an EVP, again, it's not my position to push for policies, but it would be my job to create a DSG organizational environment that welcomes all sorts of students. And as someone who has had a disability that has made quality of life inconsistent, so I always feel like I'm making excuses because some days I'll be fine, some days I won't. And as someone who recognizes that not all students, because of their different qualities of life, or just the different the different humps that we're going to encounter during our daily lives at Duke, that having 3-hour meetings on Wednesday nights is not the sort of DSG structure that I want to have. I want to have a DSG structure that welcomes students who, no matter what they're dealing with at that time, can have a mentor or a support system through me, who can connect them to different student resources and different administrators on campus so that they can actually push for the policies that they want. That's what I see and that's a problem with DSG as well. It just it's not for all students. And I think it's unfortunate that I feel like I always have to make excuses during my time in DSG, and I'm sick of that.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Alex.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So I think who's the next person?
Is it Caleb and Sean?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right. Thanks guys. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Do you want to go?
Yeah. We can plug it into yours.
Okay, cool. If there's room.
Or do you have a USB port?
Yeah, I think we're
Happy game day.
game day, yeah.
Thanks for having us. My name is Kayla Thompson.
And I'm Sean Bissell. We're running to be your DSG president
And executive vice president. So this is a pretty new approach to DSG campaigns. Candidates typically don't run together, but we really believe that having a cohesive team for these 2 positions will bring new vigor to the organization. And we hope to show you that our unity, abundant experience, and common goal of strengthening DSG to create a better Duke make us the best choice for the job.
So you'd be hard pressed to find 2 candidates with as much experience as we have. I've been serving as the Vice President of Academic Affairs for 2 years and have also served on the Board of Trustees Academic Affairs Standing Committee for 2 years. I was also an RA on East Campus last year.
Yeah, on my part, I served as the former VP for social culture, and I also sat on the Board of Trustees Undergraduate Education Committee.
And so the experiences we've had on the DSG Exec Board have given us those relationships with administrators and trustees to know where Duke's going and how to really present projects and work with the administration to get things done. A project that I worked on recently is the Duke Syllabus Archive, which took a lot of going through hoops and working with a lot of different departments to really get implemented and get going.
Yeah, during my tenure, I worked extensively with the Office of Student Conduct to extend the alcohol amnesty policy to apply to student groups, not just individuals, so that any group that called EMS for a student in their event would not face formal disciplinary action. I also collaborated with the International Association and IFC in Panhandle to improve the experiences of international students during Rush.
And so we explained that running together is a novel idea, and I want to go into a little bit more about why it's going to be so great. It's going to be a great thing because it'll provide unity on the DSG Executive Board, and we'll be stronger together. Just going through our platform and putting ideas together, we were able to bounce things off of each other and each make each other's ideas stronger. And so this is something that is going to make DSG as a whole more representative and able to do more things for the student body. It's really important that you have people that are able to touch and dissect different issues that are going to really going to touch different Duke students' experiences. So that's really important to us.
Yeah, so we're going to briefly give you an overview of our platform. So our vision for Duke is fourfold: access and inclusion, campus culture, equity, and intellectual engagement.
And all of the ideas that we have under these four pillars are researched and tangible ideas. They're ready to go, and so we'd be able to introduce them over the summer and get going on them. So when we get back in the fall, it's all hands on deck and getting going and meeting with commissioners. So everything will be started.
Yeah, so just some really quick highlights. For example, for access and inclusion, we want to push to eliminate application fees for all first-generation low-income students. This is an initiative that has already been signed on to by all of the Ivy Leagues and our peer institutions, and we're really excited about that.
We also want to expand rural outreach to rural communities and college resources to them. In terms of equity, we want to do open textbooks where it's free and open source for all students.
Yeah, and we also want to push for a standard laundry allocation to be incorporated into housing costs so that all this personal expense will be considered in all financial aid decisions.
In campus culture, we're really looking at housing and building, bringing up the independent community and looking at data from the linking program and living and learning communities.
And we want to advocate for increased mental health support by expanding food delivery options during daytime hours for students unable to leave their dorms.
And lastly, for intellectual, continuing to expand continuing to build up the Duke undergraduate academic experience with Duke 101, which will deal with well-being, inclusion, and identity, as well as working to implement an Asian American Studies program, which the Academic Affairs Committee has passed a resolution on in DSG and has also been working with Dean Ashby already on.
Yeah, and so we sent Jay our answers to our questions, so you guys can feel free to ask us any questions.
Yeah, please ask follow-up questions. We'd love to talk more about it. We're really excited, so anything you guys have.
Yeah, I guess real quick, if you just want to give like a summary for the people that may not have had time to read it, read these.
Yeah,
so you want to take the first one?
Yeah, I'll take the first one. So some things that we've been doing, the Academic Affairs Committee has actually introduced a plan to research and implement a American Sign Language program here at the university as a way to fulfill the language requirement, because this is also another language and this is important to us. I have a senator whose first language was actually American Sign Language, and so this is an important issue to the committee. We also happily and fully supported the resolution to bring the languages building up to code and up to standards, and also not allow any SOFC funding to groups that are hosting events in the languages building.
Yeah, in terms of what we think that we could do next year as your DSU president, vice president, working with your group, we really want to look at campus culture in like different places where we feel like things are not completely accessible. So we've looked at K-ville in that respect, especially given the recent judiciary case. We want to work with the line monitors to improve accommodations there. I worked with line monitors during my tenure as VP of social culture, so I have great relationships with them. I can really leverage those relationships to improve access out there. We're also looking into establishing a Duke 101 course. This is part of our platform already. That includes identity, wellness and well-being in general, and that's a course that we hope to implement for all first years. But I think ability status is something that is often neglected when we're talking about identity. We want to make sure that ability status is strongly included within those conversations.
The last thing I'd say is that also working with professors to make sure that professors are trained on best practices in the classroom when they have students with disabilities in their classroom, because right now, Duke just implemented a professional development program, and that was a push from Academic Affairs, and this should be included, and this should be something that is really all professors go through, especially if they have someone in their classroom.
And I think the last thing we'll say is that we don't pretend to be the experts in all issues, right? Like, we are just two students, we're putting together our ideas, our expertise, but what we really see our role as is acting as a liaison and connecting student groups that are experts in the issues that they work on. You guys dedicate so much time to these issues, and we want to act as liaisons to bring your conversations to the table with administrators and leverage the experiences and relationships we have with these administrators to get your ideas on the table.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
We are now 4 minutes.
Seriously, okay, I think.
It's fine.
Hey, yeah.
Sorry, I thought you guys were like deliberating and jumping.
Sorry, we're running a bit behind.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So we're filming. If that's okay with you, some of our other members can view. So if you want to just stand
You can,
in front of the
Okay.
hold on. Let's see. There.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mayemi Kolwole, but everyone calls me Yami. I'm from a really small town in Providence, Rhode Island, in the Northeast, but I'm the daughter of 2 immigrants. My mom is from Tanzania and my dad's from Nigeria, which, as you can imagine, created a very interesting upbringing experience. I like to say I grew up in a little Africa in Providence. At Duke, I'm a junior majoring in biophysics with a minor in BMS and also pursuing an ID certificate. I'm currently the Chief of Staff of the Duke State Government, co-head of content for the bridge, and an RA at 300 Swift. But I'm not doing all of that. I really do enjoy bothering my friends until they love me, drinking peach ginger tea from Bondi, and attempting to get 8 hours of sleep. Duke, as you probably can relate, is really, really hard. Without the community that I found at Duke, I don't think I would be who I am today or be empowered enough to run for DSG president. I think Duke is objectively hard, and we can all agree on that. And without our communities, we wouldn't be able to survive more or less Duke. I joined DSG as a sophomore because I wanted to represent that community in Senate. However, when I got there, I didn't really feel empowered or had the agency to, in fact, represent that community. And that's kind of a microcosm for the larger Duke community. I don't know if you guys caught Angela Davis talk, but she said, we always like to focus on these buzzwords. And Duke also loves buzzwords, diversity, gentrification, intersectionality, yada, 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 which are all great words. But I think for me, we need to look past those words, look beyond diversity and focus more on inclusion. Does it really matter if a room has all different shades of colors, all representations of socioeconomic status, if the people in that room don't feel like they have the agency or feel empowered to speak up and represent those voices? Personally, I think that often people think DSG is wasting time or doing projects that nobody cares about or projects that nobody knows about. That's why I really want to focus on and change. I want to focus on feedback. How can we get the student body more involved? If Senator John Smith is working on this project, I want to involve the student body. So Senator John Smith is working on this project. Do you like it? Yes or no? Simple as that. If there's an overwhelming, voices saying, no, we don't want our senator working on this, it's done. If we are supposed to be focusing on what students want, if students don't like it, then we're wasting our time and energy and not being truly representative. I think Duke also exists in a very unique location, being inside of Durham. However, I think Duke students forget that there are other universities in Durham. I had the pleasure of taking a class that was half NCCU students and half Duke students. And I really, really expanded my horizons and my level of understanding of Durham through that class. I think that if we were to engage more with the students in Durham, we could have better collaboration and better intentional work as far as our policy goes, policy making in Durham. Lastly, as Chief of Staff, I think I know the ins and outs of DSG. I know what the role the president takes, and I know the true role the president is. I think every year candidates love to run on promising certain things. And of course, I definitely want to make the Duke community better. But I think the true role of president is to be a mouthpiece for students and not to necessarily be pushing their own agenda. I want to focus on what you guys want. I like to say I got my leadership by 3 main points: honesty, loyalty, and accountability. I want DSG to be transparent. And first of all, that comes from the president being transparent. I'm going to be honest with all of you guys about what I can and cannot accomplish and the status of what's going on within DSG. Accountability. I want to expose VPs and senators about what they're working on. And that means having a project management sheet that's available for all students to see and know what students are working on. And lastly, I want to focus on loyalty. At the end of the day, I want to be loyal to students and not to my own personal agenda. I like to say I came into DSG as its critic and I want to leave as its catalyst. And I hope you guys can join me on that vision.
And real quick, do you just want to give a summary of your responses to our questions?
Yeah, so the first question was.
We have the.
Oh, okay.
So what have you done?
Oh, what have I done? So I would say that I'm on SGC, which is the Student Government Council, and actually Jay had brought up about different issues associated with student programming and how some places should be not necessarily banned, but a ranking of lists of rooms that are most accessible. I brought that information to DSG exec, where Luke actually contacted Jay, banning language building as a place our students can have events. Also, through that, Christina has made a resolution to make the language building more accessible. And I think that it's kind of a testament to my leadership. I don't want to be taking all of people's projects and trying to accomplish it myself, but rather sharing that information, hoping that as a team we can work to make things better for all students. And then in the future, I think first of all, DSG is not representative, I think, of disabled students. That's a huge issue, but also goes back to the idea that does it really matter if we have representation if that person doesn't feel like they have the agency? So focusing on trying to rebrand DSG so that all students feel like they should come and represent who they are. I think, I'm not really remember who I spoke with, but I remember someone saying that at a different school when the student, the university did not want to make a building accessible, they blocked off all of the entrances and like force people to find the accessible entrance. I think like a movement like that would be so cool. And I would love, like, regardless of how this election goes, to find a way to create like an event like that at this university. Yeah.
We actually do an event like that during our disability.
Well, yeah, something like that.
We're not walking off.
Well, yeah.
How did you hear about that?
I don't remember who was sitting with you at the table.
I think
It was me. Okay, I was like, yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, that's dope.
I was
We
like,
might have to do that.
Yeah.
Really cool. That was at Miami University in Ohio.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having
We
me.
really appreciate your time, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Hi. How's it going, Jamal?
It's going well. How are you guys?
We're doing well.
Okay, so do you just want me to start?
Yeah, so we're filming here, so if you just want to talk about your platform, kind of give a summary of your responses to the questions.
Yeah. So a little bit about my platform. I have a three-pronged platform. It's just expanding horizons, creating inclusivity, and showing sustainability. With that, I won't like get too much into it because I want to like tell a story, particularly to this organization. First, with expanding horizons, I want to create a first-generation low-income library, and I'm currently working with Duke Libraries, Emily Day, who is the first-generation coordinator. To do that, I'm in a focus group for all of that, and basically what it is actually environmentally sustainable as well, because these books aren't like going and degrading, like they are being reused and it's economically sustainable. With that comes like creating inclusivity. I would like to create a diversity and inclusion club ask. With that, I would like to make sure that organizations are held accountable for making heterogeneous spaces, but they're not creating a time or a place for these heterogeneous spaces to actually truly be heterogeneous. And the reason for that is because we far too often make sure that we confuse diversity and inclusion when they're not the same thing. You can have a diverse space, but not an inclusive space because people can segregate it. So that's something that I want to like just create to hold organizations accountable. With showing sustainability, I would just like to make sure that organizations, I would first like to create a waste management team on campus for every event and not just sporting events to ensure that we're recycling, to ensure that we're like, not everything is just being dumped, because if it's not a sporting event, everything is just being thrown away. Because there's not, the Green Devils aren't there and like sorting the material for what can be composted and what can be recycled. And then longer time period, I would like to work on divesting Duke from fossil fuels and coal and into more like bioengineering or like environmental engineering sustainability. Imagine like getting on the C1 and knowing that you're on something that has like an environmentally friendly engine. And that's gonna take longer than like a year-long period. So that's like something unique that I have, is that I have 3 years to work with not only this organization, but other organizations on campus where like other candidates don't really have that same allotted amount of time. So I can see them develop and watch them flourish. Something about this organization, like I was really excited. Back home, like I have two brothers, well, more than two brothers. Jumping into the St. Louis Department of Health, and I was the city's first youth health ambassador. So I went to communities of color and I talked and I discussed about mental health discrepancies. And here currently on campus, I serve as the healthcare liaison for the NAACP chapter. So that's something that like I really do take into consideration. I talk about what is disorder, what is disability, what is important to understanding the very wide scope, because like disability, as you guys know, is not just physical, it's also mental and like vice versa. So I feel like sometimes we get too far entrenched in what is and what isn't, that we need to understand like basically the entire intricacies of the problem. And that's something that like, I'm not saying, oh, look, my two brothers, because like, this is a thing that like, I want to just say, but it's something that I truly do connect with. It's something that I've actually made policy reform for and back in my hometown. It's something that like I care about here. So it's something that really does mean a lot to me. It's something that I really want to create a lot of change for. My brother, Myron, who just turned 18 2 days ago, my mother called me and she was like, Myron is crying right now. Like he just turned 18. He was like, Mom, like I have to leave. Like 18 is the time, like I'm a man now, like I have to leave and I don't know what to do. So like just making sure those pillars are in place. Like he went to my school, my high school, which had like an autism program, and like now he's like currently working on getting a job, and it's not just something that like and I would like to bring that here, like something to connect students who have disabilities, who may not take the conventional route, and like really create and connect them to other employers more so, and then make that an implementation in the Duke Careers program, because Duke Careers Center is very much so like for one particular archetype of individual and not for individuals who like embody other identities. So I know that like this organization is something that I never even heard of, and like I'm here to tell y'all that I want to work with you all throughout the next 3 years, and it's something that I'm being very transparent about. Like I wish that I knew about this organization, but something that young trustee Amy Kramer told me was that she wished she started earlier, and now I'm starting here now as a freshman. I have the agency to do a lot and to make a lot of change, and I want to make that change with you all, and I want to make sure that you are not another organization that is tapped on the back burner, but in the forefront, and understand that like you all have a unique and vital voice. So I guess any questions?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Yeah, running a bit behind schedule, so it's good to keep things. Yeah, so let's see. Hey guys.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short, but thank you all so much for having me. So my name is Christina Smith, and I want to be your next DSG president. I'm a junior from Normal, Illinois, studying public policy with a minor in education and a human rights certificate. On campus, I represent you as the Vice President of the Services and Sustainability Committee on DSG. I'm a former director of Common Ground. I also serve as the Vice President of the Center for Race Relations, a writer for The Bridge, and a Project Build crew leader. Oh, and I also work at Brody Gym, and I've been named Employee of the Month, not once, but twice. But in these past 3 years, I've really fallen in love with this university. I've had the opportunity to engage with the very issues that affect us every day. I want to be DSG president because I know that Duke on its own will not provide us everything that we as an undergraduate body need, not without a push from student leaders. As DSG president, I want to continue to prioritize affordability and accessibility on our campus because I care about the unnecessary barriers that some students face. I want to broaden the reach that Duke students have, not just in the world, but also in our local community. And I want to challenge the unhealthy parts of our campus culture. And I know that I can achieve these goals because I have a body of project work that was inspired by student voices. Danielle, a friend unable to afford a balanced diet on our campus, inspired the Daily Double Deals, which are meals under $5 at every on-campus vendor that make eating on campus more affordable for all students and all staff members. A conversation with Tyler, a student on financial aid, led to the lowering of flex increments. Through my relationship with Jay, I learned that he and other students are unable to attend meetings in the Languages Building. So I worked with him and Duke Disability Alliance to ban the use of the Languages Building as a meeting space for recognized student groups, because it is the only non-wheelchair accessible building on our campus. And after a discussion with Lauren, I just submitted a proposal to President Price and Provost Kornbluth that would allocate nearly $100,000 a year to students on full financial aid to purchase professional clothing. People like Danielle, Tyler, Jay, and Lauren are the reason why I know it's important to listen. Relating these experiences and your experiences is what I want to bring to the DSG presidency. Next year, I want to continue to listen to these underserved communities. I will combat sexual assault by expanding prevention beyond just Haven and beyond just great communities, because this is an issue that affects everyone in the Duke community, disproportionately women of color and students in the queer community. I will expand resources for non-traditional career paths such as arts, teaching, and public service, because there's so much that Duke students can offer the world. And I will ensure that professors are labeling the total expenses of their classes on Duke Hub, because no student should be blindsided by a $300 chemistry textbook. I care so deeply about all of these issues, and more so than any other candidate, I know how to connect active listening to concrete action and policy on behalf of our student body. For instance, convincing the administration that we needed meals under $5 at every on-campus vendor was not an easy thing to do. I had to write a policy proposal. I had to have multiple sit-down meetings with administrators and be compelling enough to combat any priorities of profit or logistics. I did this because I knew the barrier to food was too great. I fought because I knew that the status quo had to change. As DSG president, I will listen to you, and I will learn from you, and I will continue to initiate lasting, positive, and concrete change for you. So thank you all so much for listening to me, but now I would much rather listen to you. So do you have any questions?
I don't know if you just want to give a summary. I know you maybe covered some of question 1, but maybe question 2. Just real quick, because I don't know if people have had a chance to read your response.
Sure. So in the first response, so what have I done at Duke? So through my membership on the Young Trustee Nominating Committee, we learned a lot about what buildings were accessible on Duke's so we talked a lot about the languages building. And so just thinking about what DSG had done, or really what DSG hadn't done, I really wanted to make a statement on behalf of DSG because we have relationships with not only administrators, but also with the Board of Trustees. Our president sits on undergrad education. So I worked with Jay and Senator Ivan Robles to write a resolution that initially said that DSG supported and really compelled the administration and the Board of Trustees to renovate the languages building with the necessary accessibility structures. I also worked with Jay and Luke Farrell, who's the chair of SOFC, to ensure that in the meantime, all recognized student groups are banned from using the languages building as a meeting space for both open and closed events. So, do you also want me to talk about question 2?
We just have a few more seconds here, so if you just want to give it a quick summary.
Yeah, so quickly, I think that the one issue that I saw most largely is having students with disability having to advocate for themselves in terms of like classes. So really thinking about how are we training professors and faculty to be prepared to handle and be prepared to accommodate students with disabilities. So I really want to work with the Office of Faculty Advancement to train not just about disability rights, but also about a few other rights that I mentioned in there. So.
Great, thank you. And I think a lot of these candidates have had really great ideas about specific disability-related policies, so we'll definitely be in touch with you. And I think Sean Bissell, for example, had this idea to have ASL courses at Duke, like he's working on that. So we'll definitely be in touch with people because regardless of how the election goes, these are things that we want to follow up on and be a part of.
Yeah, please follow up regardless of the election. So thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. I think she also mentioned that she wanted to create a specific advocate within.
I think that's what I was talking about. I think we'll definitely want to follow up with her about that.
How are you guys?
So we're filming here, so if you just want to maybe talk about your platform real quick, give a summary of your responses for people who haven't had a chance to read them, that'd be great.
Yeah, totally. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Sabria Pache. I'm a junior studying conflict and negotiation studies. And I really don't want to get to your questions, so I'll just summarize my platform really quickly. So first, I really believe that we all should have inclusive communities where we can go get coffee with people, get dinner reliably. And so what does that mean? It means looking at our independent housing. How many of you guys are independent housing students? So if you talk to your friends who are affiliated with independent housing, you probably sense a stark contrast between what the kind of culture that we do have in our independent housing, and I really think it's important that Duke invests and elevates in those. And so I lived in independent housing all my time at Duke, and I've been an RA. So last year I had the idea for Kill Go Rush. What if we had a month of daily programming that kind of continues the momentum that we established at the start of the year to build community and show that, hey, end the stigma against independent housing. So that went really well. This past year, I worked with HRL to get $1,000 for each quad to do something. I really want to, as DSG president, work with RAs and house councils, work with administrators, and get HRL to hire more staff so that they can facilitate a start of the year retreat for all sophomores in independent housing to kind of build those networks that make build students and other pre-Os so close. Because independent students, we already have the advantage of being from diverse backgrounds. Academically, we're diverse. And so that's something really important to me as like an RA. And the second is like intellectual engagement. Program 2, I've talked to a lot of deans have been in works already with speaking about a faculty student program from the start of your freshman year. That's kind of better than the academic advisors who don't really, aren't always the greatest. I want a higher percentage of students who are really excited about their undergraduate majors, just like I am, and have programmatic support for that. Also increasing tech recruiting. Globalization is changing the world. Automation is affecting every single industry. I want to make sure every student is unlocking every resource here so that they can go on to the world and make it a better place, because it's such a privilege to be here. And the third is DSG reform. So apart from Jamal and me, me and Jamal are the only ones who aren't on DSG exec, where we're already kind of expected to introduce policy proposals and such. But I've been the Attorney General for 2 years, so I kind of see all these candidates running on the same ideas. Like, let's make languages building like physically accessible. Let's fix the bus system. But what I tend to see is like a failure to deliver and execute at the very end. And I have a track record of doing quite the opposite. So my sophomore year, I was like, menstrual hygiene products. I went to a school where they did provide them. Why aren't they here? Not even in DSG, I worked with all the student groups and led the initiative to get them in the Bryan Center. I'm doing that now to get that in the Perkins, and I'm confident that hopefully by fall of this year, we'll have that institutionally in the Bryan and Perkins, which I'm really excited for. I have a lot of ideas on how we can make that happen, accountability and transparency, but at this time, I'll just transfer a little to like the questions that are like pertinent to you guys here. I think in terms of like social norms, that's where we need to raise the awareness of the issues facing disability students, minority students, as myself, religious minorities such as myself. We can embed that in our campus conversation. So like, it's one thing to say we need to recess a week, first off, just like as a thing, because it's not being productive, people are being burnt out. But in addition to that, we need to have systematic programming, embedding these kind of things throughout our entire undergraduate experience. So like wellness has been able to like have all these collaborations, student groups, to kind of come up with the idea of wellness. The same thing for sexual violence needs to happen, especially against women of color who are disproportionately affected by sexual assault. And the same goes for the needs of disabilities, students with disabilities. As part of like what I talked about with like DSG reform, I think the need for greater transparency ties into kind of a conversation I had with Jay like last week. Where is DSG actively, I know Ivan has been really great and working on some great projects, but in terms of continuing that conversation actively and hearing every single concern, but also factoring, like, because at the end of the day, DSG senators are just like bodies ready to like serve, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. And right now, I don't know if the institution is like seeing that as our purpose is to serve. In terms of like what as a president I can do to kind of embed students with disabilities into the conversation, making sure that every single student group, when they're submitting SOFC funds, right, that they're making sure that all their events are inclusive to students with disabilities, so that students with disabilities don't have to put in the legwork to make sure that these events and programming are actually accessible. The other thing is like getting the SDAO to hire potentially a staff person to make sure that the DDA doesn't have to like do all the programming. That sounds kind of like big, but then when you think about it, like CMA, AGS, like all these programs in Stanford School, like they have staff coordinators that are actively leading programmatic initiatives, and I don't think like students really should be any different. As an RA, I've worked with SDO, not only like a note taker, but just like with residents and coordinating with that, and I've noticed kind of the slow bureaucracy that seems to be taking place, and I want to make sure that I'm addressing that if I was elected, because I'll be in a position of leadership where I can kind of navigate the space. And I have, I've worked as president of AGS with high-level officials, but also articulate the needs of all students, make Duke a place where we all can thrive. So that's a bit about me. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk. I don't know if we're good on time, but I'd love to hear more questions.
It's been about 6 minutes, so I think we're all set, right?
But we'd love to be in touch afterwards, regardless of the election. To
yes,
keep on. You have some great ideas, so we'd love to keep on.
Yeah, definitely. And if I was elected, I promise to not only as myself as DSG president, meet with all student presidents of all student groups, but make sure that our Senate liaisons are held accountable to consistently be doing the kind of legwork that needs to happen.
Great.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, so on to the next. So how many groups do we have here?
Groups.
Like how many students? for that
So let me
project?
just check the schedule that we had. I think almost everybody's already on the schedule. So Jay and Nick were up first, and then Laura, Daphne, Lauren, and Joshua.
Okay, so, I'm sorry. I don't want to rush, everything's still in my backpack. I'm Nick.
I'm Jay.
And we are working on a project together that is a children's book for age group, we decided 7 through 10, that is about autism as a whole and
really like disability assessment.
So we're still in the works with the title. We decided we're gonna change it from Hummingbird, and I'm gonna give him that. I have a couple of bits of illustrations of the different characters we have here. And so I can pass these around so that everyone gets a look at them. The last one, not exactly finished. It is the teacher, Miss Honeysworth, but I will pass that around.
So yeah, a little more background on the project. So we finished writing our book this past Sunday, and then Monday we went to Watts Elementary School and actually read it to a couple of students there and got some initial feedback, see how they perceive the book, if it was on a level they could understand, things they wanted to see changed. And those are changes we'll be implementing as well. But overall, we think that this will be able to get the message across to our target age group that even if people are different, if they have something like autism or even like a physical disability, like one of our characters is in a wheelchair, that doesn't change them as like a person per se.
As a child.
Yeah, as
was
a
our main
child.
message is they are still a child that loves life and wants to have fun and wants to just play with their friends at school. So our book really tackles the stigma of persons with disabilities in the educational system, so especially elementary level, and kind of the whole social groups that form there. So the initial feedback that we got from the students that we talked to at George Watts, were that we should define what autism is a little bit better. They have had experience with autistics and children in their class that have disabilities, but I think some of the terminology we used might have been just a little above them. Now, these children were an age group lower than our target audience. So we were actually very happy and surprised by how well they understood the message of the book. And one of them even just ranted off what our almost exact wording of what we wanted the message of the book to be. So it was a very good encounter. So I think we're gonna read it for you all. And if,
I don't know if we have time.
Do we have time?
Well,
How long do we have?
how long does it take?
It's a great question. To children, it's about
a few pages of it.
Okay. How about the first couple pages?
Sure.
All right, so we do not have illustrations yet. Those are currently in the works, and we'll have children of the community also contributing to those.
Yes, that is a big point.
So it starts off in the classroom. Good morning, class, Miss Honeysworth said to her 4th grade class. Good morning, Miss Honeysworth, they replied. Before we get started on our lesson today, I want to introduce you all to a new student. Bridget, could you come up to the front of the class for me, please? A blonde girl slowly walked from the corner of the room up to the front of the class while looking down at her feet. This is Bridget. She just moved here. Make sure to welcome her. Right. And then next. Can Bridget sit next to me? Asked a student named Alex. Bridget is my friend. She just moved in next door to me. Of course, replied Miss Honeysworth. Bridget took her seat next to Alex. Now, Alex's father had told him that Bridget wasn't autistic. He explained that she might have trouble making friends and might be a bit different from the other kids, but that she was a child who wanted to have fun with her friends just like everyone else. I think there we're going to expand a little more on what exactly autistic means because we don't quite get into it enough. We get the message across we want to, but I'll make it a little more invitational. So, and then Alex leaned over to her and whispered, "Everybody says you can meet my friends. They're all really nice." Alex noticed that Bridget seemed nervous about meeting his friends, so he reassured her, "Don't worry, I'm sure you'll get along with them."
Alex smiled his nicest smile at her, and Bridget kept looking at her papers. Before she knew it, the bell was ringing and her classmates were going to recess. "Come on, let's play," said Alex. They walked outside for recess together. Alex told her all about the teachers and the school as he led her to a small group of students. These are my friends. Hey y'all, meet Bridget. She just moved into my neighborhood. Bridget, this is Cindy, Lily, and Johnny. Hi Bridget, nice to meet you, said Cindy, who was wearing a really pretty green shirt. Howdy Bridget, said Lily, who had hair as red as fire. Hey Bridget, said Johnny, who wore a cool hat. And so I will stop there, but our book goes into the interactions between Bridget and each one of the students individually, and especially we talk about Johnny's disability and how that doesn't stop him from having fun with the students. And so different problems arise. We have about 3 parts that they go through where they all bond as a group, and at the end, they all take a big photo together. And we want to tie in actually the community to our book, So our idea was they go to art class and they all paint self-portraits. And Bridget ends up painting a very nice picture of a hummingbird. We want to actually have students from the community, George Watts and other schools, paint self-portraits, and then we're planning to scan them into our book and actually use them as one of the pages of our illustrations. This would be hopefully a representative of all people that we have in our focus groups, both people with disabilities, neurotypical people as well, just everybody, because this book is for everybody.
I have a number of questions. So have you spoken with teachers, or have you made the plans yet to go and make the visits?
Yes, so we do have connections at George Watts, and I will I have a call with them set for Monday morning. So I'll be talking to them, and the goal is we have to set more concrete timetable, but right now it looks as though we will be meeting at least 1, perhaps 2 days after school this coming week to sit down with kids as they do self-portraits, because they have a program where after school kids wait for to be picked up, so they just play around or draw anyways. So it'll just be like one of those things. And then provided that they can make it work, March 19th, the Monday after spring break, is whenever we will be able to sit down, and they don't know if they'll be in a classroom setting. This is something we'll talk about, in a classroom setting where we come like during the school day and read to an actual class, or if it'll be after school. But either way, it should be a group of students within our target age group with a mixture of having disabilities and not having disabilities.
My other question was, I wanted to hear you guys talk about your reasons for choosing the language. She is an autistic, as opposed to like she has autism, which I think is more common for with parents and like kids. I just wondered.
So actually, this was one of the issues that came up with our initial feedback, is by using the terminology "she is an autistic." The students we met with actually had trouble determining that meant that she has autism. So I know in your class, we talked about the pathology paradigm. So we were, I guess, trying to tackle that issue as well is the best way of saying that.
So it's interesting that you chose an identity first language, which there's a whole thing behind that. Some people aren't in my class. It's something that we talk about a little bit in the beginning of the semester. And I've just never seen it used like with a child, especially when it's like a parent or a teacher talking about the child. Like usually they use the people first language. So it's an interesting choice, and I just wondered if you could think about that a little bit. Like I think it's really common for like autistic adults to say like they are an autistic.
Okay.
Right? Because like for them it's like a matter of like pride, and they're trying to destigmatize that as an identity. I don't know. How do other people feel about that? Like with a kid, like
so
a teacher saying that language.
Yeah, so again, I think it'd be up to personal preference, especially if they were adults. But given the fact that they're children, I would go with person first language. And I would especially talk to people with autism and ask them.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any specific contacts with people who are in that community, and if you want to run this by them, they would probably have a better answer for you.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, given that it's a third party introducing someone else, like then I don't think that person, like if you're a first party talking about your autism, it's fair to say I'm autistic because you're the one choosing to destigmatize that. But if you're introducing another individual, like I don't know if your choice is the one that should be in forefront.
All right. Looks like a great project, but I'm really excited to see how it turns out. All right, can we move on to the next page?
Awesome start, guys.
Yeah.
Really great. Next, we were going to hear from Laura.
Okay, so I have a couple of like questionnaire questions. If you like want to like fill out anything or have any like, comments.
Do you have an electronic copy that you could send us that we use like a Google form? Or, like,
Yeah, I can send you
document?
one. Like I don't have one on me, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because we can send that out, and then it's also easier for like people like me, like and people with disabilities to fill out electronic forms as well. So
Yeah.
it just gives people another option.
All right, I will do that. So I haven't. It doesn't look like much yet, but I just got this board. And what it's going to be is like more of an interactive art project. And so I actually have been trying to figure out some electrical engineering, which I'm not good at. Might have turned out a few. But what it's going to be is kind of like a neuroatypical person on this side, and then his perspective is kind of going to be like these two lines, and there's going to be an autistic person stimming, and you can get that through like the title, which I have completely she'll be hand flapping, and you can like reveal it to the movements. I've got like the images already, and so what I'm going to do is use the Fusion laser cutter to like kind of print that on here, and then within this like range of perspective, I'm going to have like two different perspectives, and one is like the sanest perspective, and the other is going to be the neurodiverse perspective. And so I kind of wanted to like get your opinions on like what words I should be using. I had a couple of different words that I was thinking for either perspective. So like the sanest perspective, I was thinking about like printing out like silent and abnormal and low functioning or disruptive and impaired, like words like that. And then for the neurodiverse perspective, I would use like equal and like disabled and neuroatypical and appreciated. So if you guys like have thoughts on what words would be good for either perspective. So I have like an industrial switch. Oh, it's kind of a mess. Yeah. I'll fix it. Anyway, there's an industrial switch, so I'll be able to. I have another board that will have like the neurodiverse perspective to the sanest perspective, and you'll be able to like physically switch it. And then this will be like I'll use a laser cutter to cut out all of the words, and so they'll be backlit. So one strand of Christmas lights like will be switched to like when you switch it, one set of words will light up, and when you switch it, the other set of words will light up. So that's like the general concept of like the message that I want to get across. In the kind of the free space, I'm going to try and do something like more like representative of like I don't know if you guys seen the video In My Language, and it was kind of like describing like thoughts and feelings of like how autistic people think. So I'm trying to do more research on that and figure out what they like their thought processes. And so the rest of it's going to be like textured and resources, or we'll see how far I can get with like as far as like interactive pieces on the board. But I'm definitely going to do like cloth and like hot glue to like create textured things, and you'll be able to touch the piece and like feel different kind of things. So this will be like all of the words will be in the neuroatypical perspective, and then the rest of it will be kind of not words. So that's the general concept of the piece.
What do people think? What questions people have, or have advice on words that she might use?
I think for your neurodiverse perspective, you were talking about one of the words was disabled. So for this one, I understand how there are sort of some parts within the disability community that are trying to reclaim that word, but between the word choice between disabled and handicapped, usually disabled is a connotation where it focuses on what one cannot do versus handicapped, where it's what one can do despite. So I'm not sure whether that's like really technical.
Yeah, I felt weird about disabled. I think like I was doing disabled versus impaired, but I think I like handicapped a lot better.
I think there's some historical context in handicap where you have reference to like these people after the Civil War who were like basically begging on the street. So I think there's the historical context, and I think the word that people in the disability community prefer is disabled. I mean, obviously no word is perfect, but at least I think in the community, from what I've seen, disabled is the preferred terminology. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Mary?
No, I think you explained it perfectly. Yeah, and does it need to be there? I mean, you talked about the video in my language, and so what are the empowering words that she uses? You know, you might borrow from that. It sounds like that was a big inspiration for this project. Yeah. Kind of like she's redefining what other people see as stimming as like communication and language and interaction with the environment, right? So you might like use some of her language, and then like I don't know how you might credit her somehow, like inspired by Amanda Bags or something like that. You might look there as a starting point.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's very ambitious in terms of the writing. I think people are like really impressed by just the equipment that you're incorporating.
Yeah, then so if you send us the questionnaire electronically, you can get that sent out.
Okay, I'm willing to do that. I'll actually just make a video for it.
Yeah,
So
probably.
cool.
So I think next we're ready.
Okay, so hi, I'm Daphne. For my activism project, I wanted to focus on, let's say, a subset of mental illness that I feel is often very much overlooked and even disregarded, just because of the connotations that it has in our society today, which is addiction. So what I'm trying to do is look at substance use and addiction, and I wanted to define it very broadly. So I said substance use instead of, say, drug use, because I wanted to definitely include alcohol and tobacco in there as well, just because those are much more common, and I feel like it's easier to start a conversation when more people know what we're talking about, and then to extend it further from there. So the three main pillars, I'd say, that I'm trying to focus this project on are criminalization, patterns of medicalization, and stigmatization concerning addiction. So I'm trying to look at how these factors might impact our approach to care, both in terms of the individual's care-seeking behavior and how comfortable they feel in seeking care for themselves, and in terms of what resources are actually available or allowed to be available for the individual. So I've been doing a lot of interviews with different parties that are involved in this topic. So this would be researchers, professors, different organizations within Duke, such as Duke Reach, Do Well, Student Health. I've also been looking at programs and rehabilitation programs, detox programs, and counseling programs within Duke University Medical Center. I've been interviewing different rehab programs such as TROSA, for instance, in the larger Durham community, and see how they interact with Duke and the perspectives that they have on the issue. I feel like a lot of the stigma that addiction has today is due to misinformation and due to some manipulative ways in which we interpret what it actually is. So what I essentially want to do is not to condemn or condone substance use in any way, but just to get the conversation started. So I will hopefully be able to make a series of posters in this respect. So they will, in my head at least, they look like infographics at this point, but this is still work in progress. So I don't know exactly how they will turn out. And what I want to do is just have them displayed somewhere where people wouldn't necessarily be looking for them, because it's very easy to shy away from this topic, especially because of that legal concern that's always somewhere in the back of our heads. Even within Duke, I've been noticing that it's very difficult to engage in open discourse regarding substance use and abuse in general, because there seems to be this tendency to think that if we talk about it, then we're legitimizing the action. We can't do that because we have the university's image to uphold. So even within the medical system, this has been very much prominent. So that's kind of what I'm trying to break through and get the conversation started in an open manner, let's say. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's still very much work in progress at this point.
And you're asking us for feedback on like where to showcase your posters and
That
how
is
to
one
get
thing.
people's attention.
Yes, and the other thing is just how to make it accessible. Because I'm thinking of making them infographics, I was wondering, say, if I had an audio file attached to it, would it be better if I just narrated the entire thing, or would it be easier to just turn the infographics into a text file and have that read? So for instance,
This is something that we struggled with last year with the posters that we had displayed on the campus club wall. Do you remember, Jay? And how we ended up dealing with it was that we had a link to our website, and I've created a website for Disability Pride Week that I'm gonna use to showcase your projects. But on there you can have like an audio file or readable text by screen reader with image descriptions and stuff like that. But how do we get people to know where that website is, you know, especially if you're talking about people with visual impairments. So if you wanted to get like bit like a Braille version of just the URL.
Maybe, yeah.
From, I don't know, you'd have to work with SDAO on how to get Braille versions of something, just give them plenty of time. I wouldn't say you need to give Braille for the whole poster series, but just like for the URL to the website to get to that audio content.
So I would think there'd be some cost associated with that, and we would have to submit for the hearing on March 6th. You need to submit by this Saturday.
Today?
And of course,
Saturday?
yeah, well, yeah, today.
Okay.
So like, I think we could technically get it in Sunday and maybe Monday. I wouldn't want to push it though.
Right.
There will be a hearing on the 20th, but then you won't be able to appeal less than 2 weeks before the event.
Yeah.
So that would just be our last chance on the 20th then.
2 weeks before the event would be during spring break, so
Yes.
that's kind of hard to.
Yeah. So you either have the 6th to the 20th. So if there is a cost associated, I guess we can try for the 20th.
So the Braille you're proposing is for visually impaired persons?
Yeah,
But then, so like they get on the website via Braille and
Right.
then they.
How do they navigate it?
It would have, well, I have to work on making the website itself accessible. So that would hopefully be
I mean, the other thing is if you have someone there that's just like, this is the website, I can dictate to you like what is like, isn't that
yeah.
a low cost?
Right, but then she'd have to be with the posters all the time. I guess it might make more sense rather than.
Oh, because we're not this isn't gonna be at the exhibition, it's gonna be like somewhere around campus.
Well, I think it'll be the exhibition that we're planning, but you're hoping for bigger reach, is that what you were?
I don't know if I'll be actually able to do that this semester because a lot of the
Yeah.
spaces seem to be reserved through the end of the year and even
Yeah.
into October for some places.
Yeah.
So I feel like the display will be during Disability Pride Week,
Yeah.
predominantly for this semester at
Right.
least, but if I decide to stick with it
Yeah.
and get it displayed next semester, then that will definitely be it.
Okay. This is probably something we have to keep moving on. Yeah. Okay. Any other feedback or questions on Daphne's project?
So we can give you a contact person with Braille. It's Nicole Stovall. Have we sent her contact out yet? I think we. Anyway, we'll make sure we do it this week. Yeah. Yeah, and so you can get in touch with them, and we might be able to get you funding if you need it. We'll try.
Right. How much will it cost to get Braille with just a URL? You know, just one like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to have somewhere.
I don't know. Like, we can see.
Yeah. Okay, but we'll come back to those questions. And like the next person is Lauren.
Yeah. Can I grab your email request?
What?
Can I get your email?
Duke Disability Alliance at Duke. That goes to all the execs. So anyone, if you have anything to send, distribute to our membership, you can email us at that email. Yeah. All right.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm in Dr. Q's Neurodiversity Narrative and Activism Writing 101. And for my project, I want to tackle the issue of representation of disability, specifically in film and shows. Because what I've noticed is oftentimes they won't use actors with that certain disability, or disabilities can be vilified. And so I was thinking of making a blog of movie and show reviews. And so the ones that I've picked out so far, they both talk about things that have done it poorly and movies and shows that have done it well. And so I was just gonna write reviews for those and post it to a blog. And so I'd love to get any suggestions. I already have an idea of what movies I was thinking about, but if anyone has any other suggestions of what they've seen that either has struck them as a good representation or a very poor representation, I'd be interested to hear that.
What ones are you doing so far?
So far I was thinking Wonder Woman, because this movie was commended for being feminist, whereas it's clearly kind of ableist also because the villain has facial deformity and they're made to seem evil and scary. Along that Wonder theme, movie Wonder. They did interview lots of disabled actors, but they eventually chose a non-disabled actor. And then I was thinking the show Breaking Bad,
where they have an actor with cerebral palsy playing a character with cerebral palsy, and then the show Stranger Things. The character Dustin Gatton Matarazzo has a disability, and I think that's a really interesting case because he's not like the token disabled character in the show. He's just a normal character who just happens to have a disability, and I find that very interesting. And then I was also considering doing the theory of everything because I understand that for some disabilities and some storylines, it's not possible to have a person with an actual disability. But the actor did a really good job of spending a lot of time studying Stephen Hawking's life and his experiences and being able to accurately portray that. So do you have any suggestions or questions?
The show Speechless would be a good one to look at as far as like the representation.
And have you ever seen The Good Doctor?
I haven't.
That's a good show too. The doctor, like the main character, has he has autistic. It's a really good show.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I would want to know if you've been reading other reviews of these movies to like make your review kind of entering into a conversation on, okay.
Yes, I have. And I was planning on making a blog, and I'll make a post about how I'm personally I'm non-disabled, but I am an ally about that for my position. And I was also gonna post these reviews to like Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, to because people already in that like movie critic niche. It's a opinion that really hasn't been spoken much about.
And for speeches, if you do decide to use that, there's a lot of discussion on that on the disability blog I shared in class, the Accessible Stall. They have a whole like 45-minute episode where they just talk about Speechless, and then they kind of come back to it a lot in later episodes of the podcast. So you might want to check that out.
Hold on one second. Hey, Ashley, did you have something to contribute?
Oh, I have been busily typing away because I'm still reflecting on the substance abuse project. So I sent a page of links to Marianne to pass on. So I'm slowly catching up.
All right. Yeah.
I have my microphone on.
If you have anything to say, just let me know in the chat so I can turn my volume off.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn off this microphone.
Thanks, Ashley. Awesome. We'll check who's next on the list. Joshua.
Oh, okay. So hi guys, my name is Joshua. I'm also from Dr. Q's class. So I decided to take up a project on trauma, and specifically sexual assault related trauma. So when I dove into the topic and I was first doing some thinking and a bit of research, I realized that indeed we have quite a few resources for sort of post-event trauma resolution. So for example, if you're a victim of or an observer of sexual misconduct in any way, then there's a process of reporting that's very clear. With a women's center that's open to people, anyone along the gender spectrum where they can go and have some conflict intervention. But what happens before the event to try and prevent this sort of thing? You know, it's oftentimes goes unsaid. And it's a sort of uncomfortable and touchy conversation that people don't really want to have. But at the same time, so I'm working with two students from the Arts of the Moving Image class. So we're putting together a video to sort of bring out this perspective of the culture of silence that we have here at Duke. Spoken to some sort of members of the general Duke community to see what they feel about the issue of sexual assault, what the problem is, and some representatives from student groups. So the Sexual Assault Prevention Team and the Duke Students Against Gender Violence. I think the two students I managed to speak to, Matt and Inez, they also have many like crossovers. They are in multiple organizations, so they managed to bring out quite a few perspectives. Even things like how things that we're very proud of, like the deep difference, you know, how we can deal with all sorts of horrible things, right? We can have 2 hours of sleep and then wake up at 8 a.m. for a midterm and have an interview at 12 and then still have energy to go out and party the next night and then, you know, come out on top of all these things. You know, that's something we're pretty proud of, right? That's the deep difference. But that, you know, also creates an environment in which people want to avoid having to seek help. And even with all the resources out there for them, they find it very difficult to sort of swallow that pride for a moment and go and access all these resources that are sort of there exactly for them. Finally, we also spoke to Sheila Broderick from the Women's Center, who again brought up a lot of key points and a lot of personal stories about what it means to, break through that awkwardness and just talk openly about what sexual relationships mean to us and the kind of values that, we as a community here do want to build. So that's going to be somehow condensed into a 3-minute video. We have done most of the rough cuts all over this week. And so over the weekend, we're going to be refining it. I think we should have a rough cut to send out to at least Dr. Q and some other people for feedback by next week.
So what is the film purpose is to just elaborate that we have this system, but we never focus on the pre-issue conversation?
Sort of. So the idea of a culture of silence is it's going to be something that discomforts people because I'm trying to sort of show that we aren't innocent when it comes to sexual assault. Like the fact that one person can be sexually assaulted is not just the fault of the perpetrator, not at all the fault of the victim, but it's kind of the community that provides this camouflage for predatory people to act. For example, if we are okay and we don't say anything when people make inappropriate jokes or make these slants about what they're going to do once they get drunk, or we don't confront the fact that you just tell your friend out of great love that, hey, do you know that you're very, very different when you're intoxicated and this is actually what you do? If you don't bring these kinds of things up, then I feel like we play into this culture that facilitates sexual misconduct, which is quite dangerous.
Okay, so it's to expose and bring up that conversation, not to try to solve it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. It's a really great project. Yeah.
So you're talking about rape culture. Okay. You mentioned a student group that you're collaborating with. I didn't get the name of it.
So there's the sexual assault prevention team.
Okay. Yeah.
There's the Duke Students Against Gender Violence.
Okay.
And I think the representative that I was speaking to is also working with Howie Kalem, who's the Title IX coordinator, and they have a task force. I forgot. I think something like Task Force Against Sexual Misconduct, or something like that. But that one is more the Duke administration.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a resource that I'm not sure whether will be helpful, but I'll put it out there. This is Ashley Elrod. A report recently went around on the Disability Studies Humanities listserv, and it was conducted by the National Council on Disability and relates to sexual assault of college students with disabilities. And it was released quite recently, like 6 to 8 weeks ago. And I hadn't sensed whether there's a really explicit focus of your project on people with disabilities, or whether it's more expansive than that.
Sorry.
Go on, please.
So I don't think that there's a specific focus on people with disabilities, because I was kind of looking at how the trauma affects people, and the psychological trauma that they experience affects them for the rest of their life, and that's what we want to prevent right at the start, so that we don't have to go into that sort of process of treatment and cure.
I see. I understand.
So the connection is basically looking at trauma as a disability, and sort of.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Ashley, could you send me that resource and I can forward it on to Joshua?
Sure thing. I'll do that.
Thanks.
I mean, I think it would be a good thing for exec to have too, if you could just email that to exec. You can also publish that.
Thanks, Joshua. So that was the last person who was on the schedule, but Esther is also here. Do you want to share your project?
Okay, awesome. I'm Esther. I'm also in Dr. Q's class. I am working on a blog style inspired by Humanism New York. So I'm thinking of creating a Facebook page, and I'll post photos and write paragraph about the photo. So one thing that I'm really struggle is I don't want to focus on Duke, but I want the context to be applicable to outside of Duke. But right now, I only have access to Duke's campus pretty much. So what do you guys think about that? You guys can tell me about that too. And I want to not just any specific type of mental illness, but I want to tackle all type. My goal is to make people familiar with the struggles that people with disabilities they face. And for example, I took a photo of the ramp, like in front of the chapel, like to see how people with disability commute to different places. So those kind of things. And I'm thinking of like interviewing people. I interviewed one person already, and people and like writing about their experience and what like the struggles that they face in general, and also about including facts and information about how we neglect all their struggles.
So your subjects are people with disabilities
in general.
And how are you going about like finding your subjects?
Funny. Okay. There are people in my classes who are like who have disability, and I'm thinking of like interviewing a professor and how they are handled with students who have disability. So those kind of things.
What's your like message that you want to say?
Yeah. Is that there are a lot of things that we can do to help them. Like for example, we need to for doors like that doesn't have access for disability, like we need to implement those kind of programs that they can have access to it.
I mean, in general, when you're kind of focusing on a specific population in something like a photo series, it's really important that it be just like voluntary, that the person that you're, especially if you're showing their face, but really in any case, it's important to make sure that they fully want to participate and that they have something to say. So if you're thinking about this as giving people a platform and people a voice who don't have it but who want it, just making sure that that's really clearly a part of the process, So yeah, just making sure that it's voluntary and it might also be helpful to kind of narrow your focus a little bit, and because this is since it's an activism project, it's supposed to be about like making a change or like starting a challenging conversation, and so it might be good to kind of pick maybe one issue to focus on in the message that you're raising. So it sounds like you're interested a little bit in like professor and student dynamics and classroom accommodation stuff. And you also mentioned like physical accessibility, so you might want to like choose between those, or I don't know. Do other people have feedback for Esther on?
So as it's formulated now, it's not solely focused on physical accessibility. Is that? Okay. And then so basically you take pictures of the people with disabilities, and then you like include an excerpt of them talking about their experiences. Is that okay? Right. As far as the scope of the project, I think it would kind of depend on the content you have. I mean, I think it would pretty much all be good to include, but it just might be a little too much information. So I don't know how much information you have now, but I think it would basically just be about selecting what you think is best to include. It's basically just the amount of information.
Once I'm written down everything, I'm planning to visit you guys.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and then you can also email us stuff to exec, and we can get that sent out to you. So. Great.
That's everybody.
All right, that's everybody?
I think so. Is there anyone in the chat? Other than Ashley?
That's
everyone. I mean, that's everyone who wrote ahead.
All right,
yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Sweet.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that was great. That's a lot of cool projects.
Yeah. I wish I was in that class. Yeah.
Do you guys have any advice for sending out surveys?
Send it to us and we can distribute it to the general public.
Right.
Sure.
Also, you could go on each of the individual class pages.
I'm trying. I only managed to get into 2019. The others aren't accepting me.
If you apply to 2020, just shoot me a message and I'll go.
Okay.
And say, so when I did sociology intro, we had to send out surveys and have a bunch of people fill it out, and so many people in the class got like 30 or 40 people to fill it out, like not very good. but I got like over 200. And the way I did it was I said, like, I'm working with Duke to potentially shape policy here. And everybody was like, oh my goodness, heck yeah, like, I want to shape policy.
Can you do that for our accessibility survey so we get more responses?
Yeah, I think
we have like 65, 75 responses on that. I haven't checked in a long time.
Well, no, we have like 100 and
What?
like
Yes.
29. I mean,
We're so close.
70% undergrads, 21% grad students.
I figured if we got to like 140, that's like a 10th of the, that's like 10% of the undergrad and grad population. So that's pretty meaningful.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So we don't need to make Kevin do that.
Yeah, we can.
Well, it never hurts to get more.
Well, best of luck, though.
Yeah.
Let us know if you accepted it.
Is this the one that, okay, I
Yeah, I sent the class this week. I don't know if it's later
Right.
something that we just got some. Yeah.
So that,
Yeah,
so have not copy the book.
Yeah, I don't, I still want to pen one. I thought that, yeah.
And then,
Yes, please.
that,
I'll worry about it.
I'll go back to the website as well.
I said that it's.
And then Marion is the one that's gonna be
Just
making the website accessible to student readers, so, she'll be doing that part.
Still good.
But if you have an electronic copy, that you can send her.
There's still more than 10 of
You can use
them.
format, I can put it through this and also include the audio of the images.
Yeah, we were trying to.
So this is gonna be the best
Thank you.
part.
Thank you.
And then
Seems like a really
Kara's
good
going
project.
also to
Yes. So.
part to relative. And then this, each of these goes to a separate slide.
Oh, I only have
This is like describe.
Thank you.
Yeah, I actually, and then so it's this like bulk comes together.
You split this and basically.
It's Saturday,
So
the white inspired.
Two pieces.
Yeah, so all of them came together.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Take it easy.
See, this was just for you on my screen. But like a lot of them have.
All right,
So then
what else did we talk about?
We did
I vote nothing.
like audio version.
Rejected.
So like there's a.
Yeah,
So this is
I
like
don't
a
think it's
show
nothing. Unfortunately, I wish, but.
Go do.
So like they got a whole album of us. So they're just talking about like, which you can also do on their It's pretty easy.
Yeah, I think
to
they're
WordPress too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm using, and I still haven't done.
Like, you didn't do anything here, right?
Get myself trained on how to.
I did that.
Accessible, like.
Okay, yeah, by the way, if you could